Hey guys, today on the show I actually have someone by the name of Erik Deckers. Erik is actually an author and mainly focuses on content marketing and social media marketing. I wanted to have Erik on the show today to basically talk about his books, share his story, and hopefully talk about some of these topics. Welcome, Erik.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, no problem. So, do you kind of want to share your story, like what kind of got you started in the world of marketing?
Well, I've been doing sales and marketing for about 19 years now, almost 20 years, and started out working for my father-in-law, and we sold poultry feeding equipment overseas. So we were an international company in a little small town in northern Indiana, and I just started doing to sell one of our products. I started putting things on the web, and this is back in 1998. So we'd had a website for about 4 years, maybe 3 years, and I decided I was going to sell this reflective insulation product online, and just started putting up information. Found that if I put up more information, more people would call, but I would spend less time on the phone with them. So ultimately, it just became a matter of laziness.
Yeah.
I could spend an hour on the phone with them to close a sale, or I could put up a lot of information and ultimately, after 4 years, spend 5 minutes on the phone with them. I didn't know laziness was actually that hard to do, but it was a lot of hard work. But then I would do things like go to forums on home maintenance and home care and do-it-yourselfers and answer insulation questions for people. And this is back in the day when internet marketing was still just called marketing, but that's where I got my start doing online marketing, search engine optimization, content marketing, and doing it, way before most people even knew this was a thing you could do.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I know that I've talked with a few people who've been kind of doing this a long time, and it's funny just to see how a lot of things have evolved over time, and how a lot of these new things seem to come about even within the past like 5 years. There's like new terms and just different types of marketing that people seem to be bringing about in the world. But do you want to talk a little bit about? I know you recently said you launched a book in August. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. I had the Owned Media Doctrine come out. I co-wrote that with Talby Jackson, and Talby owns a content marketing agency here in Indianapolis called Radius, Radidious, and they are noted for running the social media command center for the Super Bowl when it was here in Indianapolis. And so that even got some news and some coverage on like CNN and a
Wow.
few other nationwide sources. But Talby and his company ran that out of his downtown Indy office. And so last year he came to me and he said, "Hey, I want to work on this book, about owned media, which is just another word for content marketing. Uh, Paid media is advertising, earned media is PR, and so owned media is everything else." And so we worked on that book together, and that finally came out this past August. We launched it, and it's on YouTube, or YouTube, that would be awesome, and it's on Amazon.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I mean, what are some of the topics like you cover in the book? I know that's mostly focused on like content marketing. Like, what would be some takeaways that people might find if they were to read through this?
Well, we gear it more for the enterprise, for large companies that need a content marketing team, and so we stress over and over the importance of budgeting, the importance of staffing, the importance of continually having good and interesting content that people want, rather than focusing um, on just having a lot of cheap, low quality content. There's been this push lately, anyway, thanks to Panda and Penguin and now Hummingbird, to make our content interesting.
Yeah.
But we were saying that large companies that have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of customers, they have almost an added responsibility to make sure they're putting out good quality content. And even though we geared that towards large companies, the same is true for small companies. Even if it's a one or two person operation, anything you do has to be high quality. You can't just throw something up on the web and hope that it's good. It has to be good.
Right. Yeah, no, I've started to notice that, just in general, from my experience, if I were to write, let's say I write a blog post that's maybe like 500 words, I mean, it could be great, but I find that Google is sending me a lot more organic traffic from longer tail search terms based around articles that I've put a little more effort into, maybe 1,000 words plus.
Right.
And that's
Well,
where,
and
yeah,
they look at things like time on site, click-through rate, whether somebody actually comes to you from a Google search result, and bounce rate. And
yep,
so if you're writing the kind of articles that people want to stick around and read, and shorter is usually better than longer, but very short is not that good. Like not don't do a 100-word post, but 500 words are perfect.
mm,
People will spend more time because they look at it and say, oh, I can easily read this. And so they'll read that. But if it's a long post, they won't spend a lot of time. It'll look too big and intimidating, and so they won't stick around for it.
yeah, and I know I've read a few articles about the bounce rate and how that might affect, where Google is kind of seeing your site. I don't know what mine is currently. I don't think it's terrible. I mean, it's not like people are staying on my site an average of 10 minutes. Granted, I've got most of my posts at this point are interviews, so there's actually a reason, if someone were to come and watch a video, then they would hopefully be there longer than not. But I think mine, I want to say, is an average of just like a couple minutes.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
A lot of blogs have a problem with bounce rate because people find you online. They find that one article they need, they go visit it, and then they leave again, and so they
Yep.
bounced. Um, but you can do things like if you've got WordPress, you can use the Better Related Content plugin, which puts other blog posts of yours that are related to that blog post at the bottom, and hopefully somebody can click that and they'll go off to a second post of yours, and then they won't bounce. Having YouTube videos is a great way to keep people on site. So interviews like this, where people even watch just a few minutes, that's pretty good. If people are staying on for 30 seconds or more, that's not bad. But if you were to have even a short 2-minute video that people could watch, just a funny little cat video or something,
Yep.
assuming it relates to the topic in itself, uh, people will watch a short video. They might not stick around for a long video, and there aren't many people who will stick around for a 1-hour video 100% of the time. But anything that keeps people there for a while, but it's a little more interactive, it's a little more a little more fun, like videos. That's a good way to increase time on site.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I mean, I've noticed that if you keep something that's engaging and wants, people are going to want something that, hopefully that they can stay there and actually get some real benefit out of. I know a lot of the blog posts I wrote are pretty short, but I've been trying to improve myself. Like I want to get some more, I guess quote unquote like epic blog posts out there that'll really keep people engaged and wanting to stay and read and learn.
hmm One of the things that I've found, and I know a lot of bloggers don't like writing them, but list posts are still extremely valuable.
Yeah.
And a lot of bloggers are tired of them. Oh, don't list posts are the devil. And but I always tell people that I will quit doing list posts when Cosmo quits doing list articles in their magazines.
Yeah.
And the reason they do that is because it's information that's. I just keep realizing I'm waving my hand in front of the camera. Um, but it's information that's easily digestible and easily read, and we know it's a finite amount of knowledge. So if I look at something, if I look at an article on the 5 secrets of personal branding, I know that's going to have something that there's a limit to it, and maybe it's the 5 best secrets. Um, but if the article is how to do personal branding, that's too open-ended, and people don't find that as interesting. And
Yeah.
so just by writing those list posts and then keeping the post short, and even something as simple as having short paragraphs, so there's a lot of white space in between, in between the paragraphs. People see that, and they don't skim then, they read. People skim long blocks of text, and they don't stick around for it. But if they just see a little bit and then oh, I can do a little bit more, and oh, I can do a little bit more, and that's what those spaces between paragraphs do, is they keep saying I can do a little more, a little more, a little more, and then before they know it, they have read the entire article.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I've seen that a lot. The kind of like list post strategies. What I've been seeing that more and more. There's a fellow that I recently interviewed. I think I don't remember the number episode it was. It would be a little bit further back in this. His name was Navid, and he's been basically blogging like these really lengthy blog posts. And he told me about a strategy he found. I'll give credit. He found a strategy through a fellow by the name of David Siteman Garland, who runs another marketing podcast interview show called The Rise to the Top, and he learned the strategy through David, where basically he calls it the shout out strategy, and they basically write a list post, and then they talk about all these bigger name people, like bigger name entrepreneurs. He goes, once he's done, he goes out and just emails them to let them know, that all, like, literally sends an email and just says, hey, I mentioned you in this blog post I wrote, and then doesn't say anything else, doesn't ask any questions, just does kind of a shout out. And then what'll happen is, if maybe a few of those people decide to share that on their social media followings, their Twitter, their Facebook fan page, he'll see like a huge burst in traffic. I think he said he got about 700 visitors in a day. So I was pretty shocked that how well that works. So I have some ideas. What I was even going to do was, in my opinion, was this might not do as well, since the angle is more towards people that are starting. But I thought about doing some unique ones, like 10 up and coming podcasters you should be listening to, or something like that, like people that are kind of starting out and may not be as well known as some of the other bigger people in the space.
Well, and that's even helpful to the industry because
Yep.
a lot of podcasts start and they don't continue. People get discouraged that no one's listening, I'm not seeing the traffic, and that might be the thing that keeps them going, at least for a little while longer. Maybe they were going to quit after 3 months, and then instead they go for 6 months, and that's the tipping point for them, where at 6 months they start to see that success. So even you doing that is an encourager. That shows leadership as well, and then from a personal branding standpoint, that enhances your visibility and your credibility within the industry.
Yeah, no, that's something that's on my like to-do list, sitting in my Evernote.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I definitely think it's really powerful. Do you kind of want to like share maybe a couple other, like, I don't know if there's any other particular strategies? Like, obviously we've talked about bounce rate, and list post is a powerful strategy that still works today. What are some other like content marketing based topics that you've seen success with, things that you talk about in your book?
Well, having Google Plus as part of the strategy is important, because Google, they want to do social search, and so they want to make sure that we're using Google Plus properly. And so if you and I are in each other's circles, and you search for a topic that I wrote about, my blog post will pop up in the top 5, usually the top 3 search results, just because of the connection. Now, it may not actually be that high. The article I wrote may actually be 387th in Google, but because of that relationship, it pops it all the way up to number 2. So it only works for anybody who's connected with me. So I need to connect with a lot of people, and I need to interact with them. I need to use Google Plus properly, just like we've been telling people to use Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter properly. You have to use Google Plus, and so now that's one more thing we have to do.
Yeah.
But this is what really pays off for us in terms of search. Google still looks at our articles being shared on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, but they've really put a lot of their eggs in this one Google Plus basket. The other thing that nice big sneeze. The other thing that really helps. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
The other thing that really helps is Google authorship. That's the authorship markup.
Yep.
Where you use the rel equals author tag, and when you link in your bio, you link back to your Google Plus profile, and you put the rel equals author tag, and that is what uh, what tells Google to stick your picture next to your search results.
Yeah, and that's something I know. For me, I recently had to. I have this sort of like confusing thing. I started a Gmail account under one email, and that was my YouTube account. But I made another Gmail address that I use for all my marketing stuff, and it's a little bit more professional email. And I found out recently Google actually gave me the capability to transfer my old circles. I only had maybe about 300 people in my Google Plus circles, but I was able to transfer those to my business account, and
Hmm.
then I recently changed my authorship so it's now linked to that new Gmail account because I believe with authorship I've heard that there's some supposedly some rumor and you'll see a better boost if you have a higher amount of people in your circles and you're using authorship to to go along with your posts. Luckily, I have my theme that I use on my WordPress blog is a Genesis theme, and I was able to easily just put in the profile URL in my WordPress user account, and it just will automatically apply that to all of my posts that I write. And so long as
Yep.
everything's set up properly, now I'll see my photo appear. And I don't know that I've really even had anyone talk about authorship. But, even it's I don't want to say it's like super basic in terms of like I don't even want to. I feel like it's not as obvious to a lot of people. Like if you're creating a blog or you're writing content online, like you should definitely check that out because it really enhances like the visual appeal of how people are going to see you when they search for your content.
Right. And people keep talking about Google Author Rank, but it's almost like page rank for authors, and whether we're going to be trustable
Hmm.
and trustworthy. And so Google is they got a patent and they called it Author Rank. They got a patent on this certain piece of technology, called it Author Rank, but they have said they haven't launched it yet, and they said we don't know if we ever will launch it.
Mm.
But people like me, we're all looking at authorship markup, which is part of schema organ.
Yep.
The schema, what's the word I'm looking for? Classification.
Schema org
So,
or whatever the.
yeah, it's schema.org. And the authorship markup is part of that. That rel equals author is part of the schema classification system. But no one knows if author rank is coming. But if it does, uh, we believe that it's going to be because of this rel equals author tag and rel equals me and rel equals publisher, that those are going to figure into author rank. And that's the whole idea behind it is Google is going to see whether we are trustworthy or not because we've published good articles or we've published spammy articles.
Hmm.
And our work will be ranked higher or lower based on our past reputations.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that might be a good way to monitor sort of a trust factor because I know that and I've been in this world already. Is there's a lot of junk out there. I'll admit I was even at one point looking at software that allows you to spin your articles, which
Yeah.
for those who don't know what it is, it's basically taking a group of I think it's synonyms that they basically use,
Yeah.
and it's allowing there'll be like three or four synonyms based around one word in brackets with pipes in between each synonym, and you'll have an article just full of these synonyms. So basically, you can use a program and spin the article, which means that it's just going to automatically take one of the three synonyms throughout the article. There might be like 30 of them, and it will make it completely unique because the synonyms are all over the place, and there's no way that you could have hundreds of combinations, if not more. The combinations would be endless. So people would take these articles and then publish them, and there's a lot of tactics behind it, I guess, but it's sort of more in
Well, and
the
it all had to
black
do with
hat world.
backlinking.
Yeah,
And it was
exactly.
it was the backlinking that that Penguin finally shut down, but they were posting these spun articles to article sites like ezine.com and
Hmm.
businessarticle.com, and any place that somebody could put up an article site, and then they would put up these low value, what would just look like poorly written articles, and they would pepper them all over the place, link back to the original article, And Google essentially didn't know how to read. They could identify keywords and they could see that all of these things were groups of words, but it didn't know what those words meant. And so all it saw was, here's an article with a keyword. It links back to this thing. We've said that backlinks are valuable, so we're going to count it. And then they started figuring out that all these spammers are doing this, and so they started developing the technology that first they devalued article sites completely. They said, we're not counting links from these. These are extremely low value because you guys have ruined it for everybody.
Right, right.
And
Which is
then,
really kind of sad, but that's kind of what happens. There's just as many people fighting it as there are trying to, overcome and cheat the system, I guess.
yeah, and in some cases, yeah, that's easier. That makes life easier to spin an article to not have to do any real work. But I think ultimately it is easier and it pays off in the long run if you just do the work. Just write the article and then post it and then write another article and post it, because I have never had to write an article about how we recovered from penguin or how we recovered from panda.
Right.
I didn't get affected by those. If anything, I was positively affected because my articles and my clients' blogs went up in ranking because we were doing it the right way.
Yeah.
We were doing it the right way basically what Google wants us to do now. That's what my company has been doing for our clients, and that's what I've been doing on my blog. And so, I don't I don't see what the big problem is.
Yeah.
But we made sure not to resort to trickery just because it just seemed nasty. It just felt dirty to even think about doing that.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, if you're doing things, in a legitimate way, writing quality content articles, and not really looking to cheat Google, then you're probably always going to stay ahead. And I've read a lot about that as well, and I've even kind of been on the other side of, when I first started, I was going through training videos and things like that where people talked about, following those strategies, and that was how to get your backlinks going and do things in a way that you're going to basically increase your rank through Google by using spun articles and using software to create backlinks and things like that. But I mean, I think overall, like you said, it's going to be your best bet if you spend the time and put actual work into it, because in the long run, you're not going to get penalized for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and ultimately, it adds to your personal brand, and this is where Google is starting to blur content marketing and social media by eliminating a lot of what SEO has been, and instead making us focus on having good relationships online. So people are more likely to read our work, producing good work that our friends then want to share with their networks. And so they're really tightening that web, and where SEO and content marketing and social media were three separate things, they're now becoming sort of one bigger industry, where if you do one, you have to do the other two.
Yeah, yeah, and I know that like looking at for example, I'm probably in there more than I should be, but I'm looking at my Google Analytics all the time to kind of see where I'm getting traffic from, and I've set up some goals and things like that to see where traffic's coming in, and I know there's a whole section in there where they're basically putting a lot of weight on what types of social media you have going on, like how many Facebook likes you're seeing, or they even put
Mm-hmm.
weight. They have a meter in there. I was a little surprised, but they must be bigger than I thought. But I'm using the comment system called Discuss,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a metric in there for that platform, for that comment platform. So they're obviously they're looking at that, and that's probably going to carry weight in how they're going to view your site.
Oh, sure. And there's, the nice thing about some of this technology is you can just set it and forget it. Like Discuss, you put it on your blog and then you're done with it.
Yep.
So and it's not necessarily automating. It's just, what are these tools that make our lives easier that we can do one time and then not worry about it.
Yep. Now, I thought I'd bring this back up, and I know you briefly mentioned it. I just don't believe I've had anyone talk about it on the show. I know what it is, but other people out there might not know what schema markup is. Do you kind of want to like talk about that a little bit? I thought it'd be interesting to talk a little bit about
Sure.
it and what it is.
Schema markup is basically a classification system that it tells Google what a thing is. So if you look at my name, Eric Deckers, right now Google sees that as a collection of letters. They don't even know what it spells. They just see that this, here's an E, an R, an I, and a K, and it doesn't know what those are, but it's starting to learn this. It's starting to learn things like semantic search, where it learns the meaning of words and it learns the meanings of questions. It's starting to actually figure things out. Well, we can help that along with schema. So when I use the rel equals author tag in my um, in my bio, I'm telling Google that this collection of letters is an author. And Google knows what an author is. It knows that it's a person who writes books and articles. And so if somebody does a search for me and maybe something else, another term that Google says, oh, they must want an author, and we know the author by the name of what this person is looking for, so we're going to show it. So if somebody does a search for Erik Decker's books, Google knows authors write books, and they're looking for this person. There are 3 or 4 other Erik Deckers in the world, but they're all like in Belgium or China. One guy is a Belgian guy who works in China. So if they go look for Erik Decker's books, they're going to pop up me and the work I've done, and not those guys because they're not authors, or at
Right.
least they wouldn't have identified themselves as authors. And so by using that schema, I'm able to tell Google what this person is looking for before the person ever searches for it. I can do that for addresses in cities and states. I can do that for musicians and actors. I can do that for uh, historical figures. I can do that for objects. Uh, even some concepts. And so, just if you look at schema.org, it tells you how to do this setup, and it tells you how to tag all of these different objects.
Yep.
I think that the rich snippets, that's where you put these classifications on those words and those sentences.
Yeah, there was I guess one of the other examples I wanted to bring up, and I'm sure some people have seen this, is that using schema also has the capability to have like a star rating system within the search results. I think like one example I know that I see all the time, and I don't know if this is markup in particularly, but I believe if you were to search the Internet Movie Database, IMDb, most results that come up in Google have a star rating. And I know one of the other examples I've seen is a lot of like products, things that you could purchase online. Some sites will have like you'll see like right there in the search result what the cost is and how it's rated based on reviews and things like that, and
Hmm.
that really stands out from the other results.
Oh yeah, and so that's pulling from things like IMDb, where you can rate a movie, or Amazon, where you can rate a book, uh, and then even the comments and the price. It'll pull in all of that pricing information.
Yep. Yeah, there was I don't know if you know of it, but there's a blog I read, a lady by the name of Anna Hoffman who runs a blog, Traffic Generation Cafe. She actually wrote an article about a WordPress plugin that simplifies the use of the schema markup. I wanted to grab the name of it really quick and share that with everybody. I have it. I'm just going to log into my WordPress and grab it, but there was a great plugin. So if anyone's like interested in how to use this, you can actually install this plugin, and it will, basically make doing this a lot easier. Like when you go to schema.org and you read about it, you're kind of like I looked at it now, it's like, well, what? I didn't really understand like how to simplify this with what I have on my blog. But I found this plugin, and it actually lets you like set up everything, I think pretty seamlessly, and you can integrate it with all your social media accounts. It's free to
Hmm.
use. I don't know if you're aware of it. Let me see. I have it here in my. I know it's called. Let's see. WP Social SEO Booster. I don't remember if that's the one. I could always put a link in the show notes and send you a link after, but I thought it was pretty interesting. It seemed to give you quite a bit of options that you might not see in just doing this by default. Like it made the whole thing simple, very simple.
Hmm. I had a plugin once, and I can't remember the name of it. Finally they stopped supporting it, and it broke something in Genesis because we use Genesis too, and so
Yep.
that broke something in Genesis that we had to just shut it off. But it was simple to use, and it would let me tag articles, but it wouldn't let me tag individuals. And so this is the one problem that I have with WordPress. I think if I've got one complaint with WordPress, it's that they don't support schema markups. So like when I put my rel equals author tag in my bio, I had to use a plugin called AuthorSure to stop WordPress from stripping that out. And so the schema plugin will tag articles, but it won't let me tag individual elements. And so, I keep hoping that WordPress is one day going to put in schema support because it would be nice to just tag single words. Um, so that's been my frustration with schema on WordPress so far is it doesn't let me do individual word tagging. I can only with these plugins I can only tag whole articles.
Right. Yeah, I did find the plugin I was referring to, and you may or may not have heard of it, but it's called WP Social SEO Booster, and there is a pro version. I put if you go over to the chat on the left there, you can see the link if you want to look at it briefly. But it does mention that it includes a section where for Googled structured data, aka rich snippets, it will automatically implement rich snippets tagging for all of your content, and then you can also optimize it with authorship and Google Plus as well as Facebook API and a lot of other SEO related social media. You can also implement I think the star rating system for using structured data, which is basically the same thing, the schema org markup.
Hmm.
So I thought that was actually pretty interesting when I found this because there wasn't really anything else that I could find that was, I think I found a few others based around schema markup, but it wasn't this in depth in terms of like what it could do. So I'll leave a link in the show notes if anyone wants to check that out. It's definitely worth a look, and there's a free version. So,
Yeah, I'll check it out.
but
I use every little bit of help I can get.
yeah, I mean, do you? I don't know if you want to switch the conversation up a little. I know we still got some time. Maybe talk a little bit about social media and like what you've been doing with that in terms of your own marketing.
Sure.
What
So I go ahead.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted a specific question or if you just, yeah, I mean, you could talk about like what platforms are working for you or how it is that you're using them.
Sure. I spend most of my time on Twitter, and usually, excuse me, usually we'll keep a TweetDeck tab open on Chrome. I've got the standalone app, but I just, for whatever reason, just like using it on Chrome a little bit better. And that also works to my detriment because I will get distracted by things happening on Twitter. And I'll just pop over and retweet something and answer a question and post a question or funny thought might pop into my head, and I'll share that. But I've been spending most of my time and spending most of my personal branding capital on Twitter.
Hmm.
I'm using Google Plus more. Still not great at it. I check Facebook about once or twice a day, usually mornings and evenings. And I'm very bad about using LinkedIn at all. And I've got people
Yeah.
who use LinkedIn the way I use Twitter, and I just haven't had the time or really the inclination to try using it that way. And I know I should, but I know I should do a lot of things. And so I've got clients who want their work done, and so I have to be choosy about where I spend a lot of my time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've kind of found myself, like when you get into this space in general, there's like, countless amounts of things you can learn about and tackle and go after. And, right now I've got a fan page I just put up on Facebook, and I haven't tried really like getting anyone to it. I don't even think I've invited my entire friends list yet. And I've just tried to stay as much focused as I can on one thing. And, um, now I'm finally seeing like, the first like 6 months or if not longer of my online marketing experience, because I've really only been in this kind of space for about a year and a few months. um, I just found it so easy to get deterred and distracted, and there's all these new products coming out, and there's training, and
Hmm.
you could really dive into anything you want, and there's people doing all kinds of different avenues. I have this huge a lot of people on my Facebook that I originally added that were a lot of people that do like promotion where they recruit people into these systems to make money. So
Hmm.
I've got a Facebook wall full of people that love to try to get them to join their opportunity, and that's sort of like flooded my my Facebook. But there's just so many things you can do, and it's so easy to get deterred by one thing or the other. And I'm in kind of the same boat. Like I probably spend most of my time on Facebook. I have I do have Twitter, and the only way I've been able to build it originally was I used a program called Tweet Adder, which sort of automated most of the process for me, and I was able to get a couple thousand followers with ease. But beyond that, I mean, I probably spend more time on Facebook because I'm in a ton of those Facebook groups, and
Hmm.
just like the way everything's laid out. But LinkedIn, I don't even go on there really much myself either.
Well, and really it comes down to whether you are spending enough valuable time and activity on that particular social network. And I think anymore there's not one that's better than the other. When you talk about the big four, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Google Plus, you could spend most of your time on any one of those and have success.
Mm,
It's just it's whether you're on it or not. It's are you actually, do you have a presence on there? Are you having conversations with people? Are you forming real relationships with people and providing valuable information? And so you can do that on Facebook, even for some B2B people. I know some B2B folks who have had great success on Facebook. All of my instincts tell me that's not the place to be, but I had a former client who said her first big client, her first big six-figure client, came from Facebook.
wow.
And so it's like, well, I can't tell people don't be on there for B2B. Other people spend their time on Google Plus, and I hear them say that, oh, this is a lonely, desolate place, but they're having great success
Mm,
because they are finding exactly the people that they want to reach. And so even a newer Twitter-like network called app.net, if you actually go to app.net, um, this is a Twitter competitor that I joined the Kickstarter campaign about a year and a half ago and then have not used. But there are people who they're tired of all the spam and all the junk and all the celebrity tweets on Twitter, and so they go to app.net, and this is where the serious geeks hang out. And they're talking to each other about all kinds of big, heady computer stuff that
hmm,
I'll never understand, but they understand perfectly. And so if that's my crowd, I should be spending a lot of time there. And I'm sure that place will eventually grow as some of the power users and the non-tech but fairly savvy people are going and spending their time there. That's going to grow, and that's going to become a valuable place. And anybody who even jumps on that now, if you use it and establish yourself as one of the quote unquote big names, uh, you can own that space. You can be dominant in that space, and that becomes your valuable space.
yeah.
It's not a matter of am I on all of them. It's did I pick the one or two best ones for me, and do I spend most of my time there?
Right, right. Yeah, no, I think it's really and even like you said, obviously, here you are writing books about social media, but you're admitting that you don't, spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, but you're focusing on Twitter as a main social media outlet. I mean, it's not really practical to try to dive into everything at once. You could basically become good at any one of them and utilize that.
Well, and there are thousands, literally thousands of social networks you could join. I mean, there's Bebo, who
Yeah.
wants to be on Bebo, but Bebo is a very wildly popular social network in Brazil. And if you speak Portuguese, that's the place to be.
Right, right. Yeah, I think I have heard of that. And there was a new one that I found in the Android store. I was actually looking around. I have an Android phone, and I was looking around in the Play Store and like kind of the top 10 apps or whatever in different categories, and I found this one called I believe it's just called Circle, and that's like looks like it's sort of an up and coming. And I did you do the normal thing where you import all your friends or whatever it is, and now every time somebody joins that's on my Facebook friends, my phone notifies me, and I've been seeing it more and more. Like people that are on my friends list are joining, and it knows because what's the contacts in my phone, it's seeing that, and
Hmm.
I'm linked up to Facebook, so it's like some of these are kind of there might be in the next couple of years we might see some new up and comers or changes in some of the other I guess the competitors or people that are trying to take social media by storm.
Well, and there's another one that I've been using occasionally called Path, and
Mm.
it's a phone only network. I can get on Path. I think it's Path.com on my
Path.com.
laptop, but I can't really contribute content to it. I have to do it on my phone or I have to do it on my iPad. But its one big feature is that you can only have 150 friends. And
Hmm.
so the idea is that you only connect with 150 of your closest friends. You don't try to amass 8,000 people.
Right, right. Yeah, I'll leave a link to the show notes in both of these. I pulled up app.net and path.com so people could check these out. Path sounds pretty interesting. Maybe that's worth something checking out. The thing with a lot of these is even convincing, I can't really see myself even convincing some of my closest friends, oh, hey, here's a link, go sign up for this. Like, they
Hmm.
don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, so I'm on Path, and I think I've connected with 10 people, and and I know 8 of them, and the other 2 I have known of online, and so chose to connect with them. So
Mhm.
um, it's not a big presence. I don't use it all the time. I maybe leave a comment on somebody's path every couple of days, but it's a nice way to share. The thing I like about it is that I can share ideas or just express frustration that I can't do on Twitter or Facebook.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, I mean, I've been sort of like in the world of Facebook. That's been my biggest one, but I do want to dig more into LinkedIn. I guess the bigger thing for me with LinkedIn is I've noticed when applying to, since I've been doing this kind of, marketing angle the past year, I've started applying to jobs that are in the marketing space, like marketing firms and things like that. And a lot of them, when I send in my resume, they're asking for a LinkedIn profile.
Hmm.
Obviously, if that's not up to snuff or it doesn't look very, if I didn't have my photo there or something, then obviously they're gonna look at me as like, well, why would we hire you? You barely, you haven't even touched this. So that,
Yeah,
and that's sort of the, you know,
that's
I
the
guess,
new resume.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I know I listened to, there was a particular interview that I listened to a few months ago. I don't know if you know him, a fellow by the name of Lewis Howes. He
Mm-mm.
um, he I guess talked a lot about how he was able to, basically connect with all these people on LinkedIn, and then he invited everybody to like a conference, and he connected everyone and sort of ran the show, and that's sort of how he was able to like launch his marketing career. And I thought it was interesting
Hmm.
because it's like a lot of people I feel like are talking about mostly, like you said, Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus, and I know I interviewed another fellow who Google Plus I still feel like it's kind of like low in the totem pole, but when I talked with this fellow about it, he actually uses the Hangouts a lot, and he has over 50,000 people in his Google Plus circles. Everything he does is on Google Plus, and that's his big thing. That was episode actually number 20 with Ronnie Bincer. Um, and when I talked with him about it, it was kind of the same thing. Like his world is Google Plus, so he hangs out with all those people. So he's sort of like, that's just where he decided to focus. So it's just
Hmm.
interesting to see how people have branched out and where they're optimizing. I don't really spend any time on Google Plus, but here he is, like you said, he was able to dive in, and like that's really where he's spending all his time, and he was able to build this massive following with it.
Oh yeah. Well, and Chris Brogan even wrote a book on Google Plus. Um, it was another Pearson book, and that it's not real thick, and it's a quick and easy read, but it's kind of the how-to guide for Google Plus and how to get started and how to start using it. So, it's not it's not a start to finish, spend every day in this book, with new things. It's more like I think it's like 120 pages or so, but it gets you started and gives you all the basics, and then you go from there. And so once you master those basics, you can do anything on Google Plus, and then it's just a matter of you trying new things and figuring out what works for you.
Right. Now, what was the name of that book? I could leave a link in the show notes for anyone that
Oh
wants to check
gosh,
it out.
I think it's Understanding Google Plus.
Okay.
I can do a quick search.
Yeah, I actually am on Chris Brogan's email list. I do follow some of his stuff, and I know um, he's definitely, his name is out there quite a bit. I see people quoting
Oh, it's
him all
even
the
from
time.
Boston.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Google Plus for Business. That's what it's called.
Google Plus for Business. Cool.
Yeah, his editor for that book, his acquisitions editor, was my acquisitions editor for Branding Yourself and No Bullshit Social Media.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. So I mean, you obviously you got some connections there if you're working with the same types of people.
Yep, and she got me first.
Well, that's good. But yeah, do you want to? I know we've probably been talking what maybe 40, 45 minutes now. Do you want to wrap things up?
Sure. Yeah, my
All right.
wife just told me that her piano player is coming in.
Oh yeah, she come in doing the whole silent like hand gestures and stuff.
Yep, yep. She was off camera.
Yeah, I get that a lot too. My girlfriend will come in here and it's like, oh come on, I'm doing this thing
What are you
live here. I'm trying to
doing?
finish up. But yeah, no, it was great to have you. I really appreciate for anyone listening, Erik was actually the first person to reach out to me and ask about being on my show. So I was really kind of honored to have him on. Someone who's written all these books and has lots of knowledge about social media and content marketing, and it just kind of makes me feel good about doing these interviews because people are noticing and starting to pick up on
Yep, all the attention whores are going to start coming out now,
it.
which
Yep.
is what I am.
Yeah, I mean, I figure the more I do the interviews, the more people I connect with. I mean, it's already opened up. I recently, I don't know if I mentioned it, but someone that I interviewed actually referred me to the Pro Blogger job boards, and I ended up getting a gig where now some of my
Oh,
interviews
cool.
I'll be submitting over to a magazine on iTunes, a digital magazine, and I'm getting paid for it. So, it's really great because the people I've been connecting with have just been really helpful, and it's all kind of like one guy introduced me to her, and then I did a coaching session with her, and then now she interviews me for a job. So it's like it all
Oh, excellent.
branched out. Yeah, and it takes time, but it's definitely worth it. And I think for anyone out there, obviously a lot of my shows I've talked about interviewing and podcasting. If you're thinking about it, go for it.
Yeah, well, and that's in branding yourself, which I wrote with Kyle Lacey. We talk about sometimes serendipity marketing or serendipity branding, where you meet somebody who introduces you to somebody who that person turns out to be a major influencer in your life.
Yep.
And of course, really it's just a matter of having a lot of irons in the fire or a lot of lines in the water. You have to have a lot of those things out there for it to work. But the beauty of networking, and we've seen it grow more in the last several years because of social media, is that you never know where that next big thing is going to happen for you just because of one thing that you do today.
Yep. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I mean, just the one of the biggest things, and I've talked about it with lots of people, is if you connect with more people, you're going to open up more avenues. I mean, I literally had someone forward me an email this morning saying, this guy needs help with his website. Could you help this guy out? What will he's looking for someone to design a WordPress site. You know, give him a friend discount or something, but he's still sending work to me that I could get paid for.
Hmm.
So.
That's the best kind.
Yep. So yeah, thanks for taking the time out of your morning to join me and come on the show.
Sure, I was glad to do it. Had a good time.
Yep. Talk to you later.
Okay.